What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft where we will actually be looking at the zero running back strategy for the 2021 fantasy football season. We're back on Fantasy Pros with a 12-team full-point PPR mock where we'll be selecting from that 6th overall position. And the roster, 1 quarterback, 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 5 bench spots so we can get right into it. And while we load, a quick reminder, if you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, let us hear it in the comments section, and check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Great price, everything you could want, top 150 overall player rankings in standard and PPR formats, individual player bios, tiers, projections, and general fantasy advice. All the details in the description. But getting into this draft, it is our turn to make a selection. And a quick disclaimer. Obviously, we said at the beginning of the video that we are doing a zero running back strategy. So what this means is for all of you that don't have experience with it, as the name suggests, the first couple of rounds, you will be going with pass catchers. You will be ignoring the running back position, which is a bit atypical for normal redraft snake type of situations. So that's why this is a lot tougher than, let's say, a zero wide receiver strategy where you go running back heavy to begin with. So for that reason, this is going to be a little bit harder. And also a couple of things to mention. Because of that, we're probably only going to be selecting a wide receiver for the first 3 rounds, because if we do it for the first 4 rounds, then that's just going to be very unrealistic, and I want to try and make this as plausible as possible. And also, we're not going to be doing this with the first overall pick, because at that point in time, going wide receiver is absolutely crazy and unwarranted, because there's only one correct decision at that point in time. Even if it's not Christian McCaffrey, it's a running back. So you'd just be reaching on a player, no questions asked. So we're pretty much only going to do this here in the middle portion of the first round, and then also at the end of the first round to kind of see which position precipitates the best overall roster while using the zero running back strategy. So with that being said, it's now time to select our first overall wide receiver. And to me, I'm looking at guys like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. The first 5 picks were all running backs. It doesn't really concern us too much. So I'm just going to go with the highest upside guy here in Tyreek Hill. It's either him or Devontae Adams. You honestly can't go wrong with, whether just looking at the available wide receivers. You can't go wrong with Hill, Adams, Diggs, Hopkins, or Ridley at this point in time. I think all have a legitimate shot to finish as the number 1 overall wide receiver. So I'm just going to go with the guy that has the biggest upside and then took a step up in terms of consistency last year. I'm going with Tyreek Hill here, and then we'll see how this thing pans out in the second round. Again, pointing out this is a PPR type of situation. Now, quickly looking at the next couple of selections here, you see after our pick of Tyreek Hill, that Ezekiel Elliott, then Devontae Adams, Austin Eckler, Stephon Diggs, Najee Harris in the first round. That is, again, I'll continue to say this, in my opinion, way too high. Followed by Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Hopkins, Aaron Jones, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen. So a little bit of a run on pass catchers. Now you see Joe Mixon and Travis Kelce. And I should point out the, logic with any of these predetermined strategies, which is what we're breaking down, whether it's zero running back, zero wide receiver, is that, the first couple of rounds, you go heavy at that position. But normally, you would be going best player available here. So while we go, I'm going to be talking about guys that I would normally be selecting at this point in time if I wasn't employing this strategy. And with Tyreek Hill in the first round, probably wouldn't have gone him there. I would have rather gone a running back like an Austin Eckler, to be honest with you, like an Ezekiel Elliott, like an Aaron Jones. So that's probably the first place where you see a difference. And now you're going to see it again here in the second round. Because if I go wide receiver in the first round, there's no chance in hell pretty much, unless there's just an insane run on running backs, that I'm going to go wide receiver then again. So right now I'm looking Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, and probably Michael Thomas. Since it's PPR, I've said this before, I'm extremely high on Michael Thomas. I have him ranked as a top 5 wide receiver. Now, there is a chance, that if we take another wide receiver, that Michael Thomas maybe drops to us, but I think that's a stretch. He's only yeah, he's 19th overall in terms of this list, so I think there's a good chance he gets drafted. So we're going to go Michael Thomas now. I love him in PPR purposes, regardless of whether it's Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. So to kick things off, we start off with Tyreek Hill and then Michael Thomas on our roster. And now, since we're sticking to the strategy, and by that I mean we're going wide receiver heavy, we're going to be looking at another wide receiver. Question is, which one? Normally, again, here, I'd be looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, Chris Carson. There are some slight scenarios where I might go 2 wide receivers to begin with if the value is insane, or 2 pass catchers. Maybe you'd swap in a Travis Kelce in there. But there is no way I would go 3 pass catchers in a real draft. I would have to get a running back somewhere there in between. So just right out of the gate, this is kind of unrealistic, and why a lot of people that might go this route are going to struggle, especially if they don't have as much experience. The other side of the coin is that, okay, you load up on these PPR wide receiver studs that are going to get you a lot of extra points from that perspective, and then you go in the later rounds with guys like Gaskin, Mike Davis. But the problem is, the chances that those later round running backs hit, they're not as high. That's a lot tougher to do than the first and second round running backs. It doesn't just happen. So that's the issue there. Here, I'm looking at probably Robert Woods or Julio Jones. I'm actually a lot higher in Julio Jones than the consensus. I don't think him moving to the Tennessee Titans is that big of a blow. Maybe it's a little bit decrease, I will say, compared to him being in Atlanta, which is more pass heavy. But at the end of the day, I think he only tumbles 2 or 3 spots. I think he's still a borderline top 10 wide receiver. I've got him higher than all of these guys in terms of my rankings. So welcome to the team, Julio Jones. And then we'll quickly look at the draft board to see what happens at that point in time, what's happened, the players that have been selected. So obviously here you see our team with 3 wide receivers. And again, I mentioned I probably would been taking like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift instead. Antonio Gibson here in the 3rd round, very good value. Cam Akers at the end of the 2nd round, just a couple guys to mention. Afterwards, Josh Allen going in the 3rd round along with Patrick Mahomes, too early in my opinion. Kyle Pitts going in the 3rd round, way too early, guys. I get it. People are going crazy for Kyle Pitts, but that is way too early for him. Then you see a run on wide receivers: Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Robert Woods, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, Miles Sanders, and then J.K. Dobbins at the running back position. And as tempting as, going someone like a TJ Hawkinson, who I absolutely love at this point in time, and I'm almost certain that he won't be available to us in the 5th round, the fact that Chris Carson is available at the middle point of the 4th round, a guy that, in a 0 wide receiver strategy, I'd been taking at the start of the 3rd round. This is probably arguably the best value in this entire draft. So, sheer luck, I would say this is breaking our way. But I should mention, if this is a legitimate, if this was a draft full of non-computers, the reason we're doing this on Fantasy Pros is because it's a little bit easier to control and break down. But if it's you in your home league or something like that with other analysts, Chris Carson isn't going to be available at this point in time. So don't count on that. Here we're getting lucky. So I do want to mention that, this is otherwise, this is a great start because I view Chris Carson as a top 10 running back. And we actually get lucky again because David Montgomery, even though the situation in Chicago isn't ideal, I think he's, in the 5th round, a good value. But quickly looking at the other players that have gone, Cooper Kupp at that point, good value. Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, same. DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett in the 5th round, great values. Myles Gaskin in the 5th round, good value. So here I could actually go TJ Hawkinson, who I think overall would make my team probably more balanced. And this is a bit of a tough situation because I did go pass catcher heavy to begin with. And yes, TJ Hawkinson is a pass catcher, but I do think there's a big drop off at that position. And for David Montgomery, I do like him, but there are question marks in Chicago. Tariq Cohen is back. Damian Williams has been added. Quarterback uncertainty. How long is it going to be Dalton? How long is it going to be before Justin Fields gets there? The schedule has gotten a lot tougher in terms of opposing rush defenses. So, the offensive line's still not 100%. So what I'm going to do here, I might regret this, but I'm going to go TJ Hawkinson. I think he's just too good of a value at this point in time. We're kind of straying away from probably the normal thing of going a running back here, which is, again, we're just going to go TJ Hawkinson here because we love the value, but sure as hell, we're going to go running back the next couple of rounds very heavily. I think right now this is a good value for TJ Hawkinson. We'll see if it, pays off, and I can already tell that we're in a tough situation because after we went TJ Hawkinson, you see Lamar Jackson, you see David Montgomery, then Jamar Chase, Kyler Murray. We see a run on quarterbacks. I was hoping either Mike Davis or Kareem Hunt would fall to us. That is not the case. So now instead, we've got a bit of a tougher decision to make, but there's actually a guy here that I don't mind in James Robinson, getting a good value him at this point in the draft. I think people are a little bit nervous with him, understandably, because Travis Etienne has been drafted by the Jaguars, but I think Robinson can return RB2 type of value. Don't get me wrong, it won't be anywhere close to what we saw last season, but I think he'll still do all right. So I'm taking James Robinson here. He's by far and away, in my opinion, the best available running back. We had to go that way. Now I'm looking again at other running backs. Chase Edmonds in Arizona. This is PPR based. Yes, James Conner is there, which is, I do think it's going to hurt Chase Edmonds. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not as bullish on Chase Edmonds as other people are, but this is PPR based, so he does get a bump there. Melvin Gordon in Denver. I do think Javonte Williams at one point in time will kind of take over or just have a 50-50 split, so I'm not too excited about that. Ronald Jones is someone that, I think is going to be the top running back in Tampa Bay, but in PPR scoring, it's a little bit tough to really like him. He's more of a standard suited running back. Right now, I think the first couple of rounds actually went really well for us, but I should mention it's kind of unrealistic that we got Chris Carson where we did, that, maybe even the James Robinson pick. I think right now probably the biggest, point of question is in the 5th round when we went TJ Hawkinson. He's just one of my guys, so I wanted to take him at that point in time. We probably should have gone David Montgomery or Mike Davis, being completely honest with you guys, but I just wanted to point that out. So here, I'm probably going Chase Edmonds because of the PPR situation. I'm leaning that way. And next, I'm going to continue addressing the running back position. I mentioned Ronald Jones is someone that I was considering. He's still available for us, so continue to get more running back depth with Ronald Jones. Yes, he is more standard suited, but we need high upside guys, and we need to get depth at the running back position. We've kind of done that now. We've got 4 running backs on the team. The wide receiver position is awesome. The tight end position, I'm very happy with. And right now, we can just pretty much go best player available. And that's the beauty of it. Let's quickly look at the situation with quarterbacks to see if other teams have selected one. So there's one other team, by the looks of it, that hasn't selected a quarterback. And I'm going to be selecting in the 10th round before them, so I can afford to not go quarterback here and just go my best player available. That is Antonio Brown. You could actually make a case for Michael Carter here now that I look at it at the running back position, since we are so loaded at wide receiver. But I think Antonio Brown has higher upside than Michael Carter, and we already have 4 other running backs. So I'm going Antonio Brown here. And then my next pick will be a quarterback, and more than likely it will be Matthew Stafford. Yes, that is the case. I like his upside more so than any other quarterback at this point in time. So now we just kind of have 2 more selections to make. And I got to be honest with you guys, I actually kind of like how this thing is playing out. I'm not a 0 running back believer, but through some very lucky breaks, I should mention that, we wound up with, I think in the first 4 rounds, actually a very good situation. And just because of how much I believe in TJ Hawkins, probably in the first 5 rounds, then it gets scary, though, because James Robinson, Chase Edmonds, Ronald Jones, big drop-off after Chris Carson. But that's where you hope, those stud pass catchers can make up for that. Tyreek, Michael Thomas, Julio, TJ Hawkinson. We'll see if that's the case at the end of the day. Now, quickly kind of, wrapping this thing up because we've only got 2 more picks to make. And I'm just going to go with some other guys that I don't mind at this point in time. Running back, nobody really that is jumping out to me. So, Rashad Penny, I guess you could say, is a handcuff to Chris Carson, but he's so hurt so often that I'd rather just not deal with that situation. I'm just going to go with someone here in Russell Gage that I've done before around this point in the draft. I like him without Julio Jones, so let's get him to the team. And then one last selection, I might go probably another wide receiver, running back maybe, or I could just go a backup quarterback. I'll probably go, honestly, a backup quarterback. I think the value is better there. I like a Joe Burrow. I like his upside, kind of just going, if things don't pan out with Matthew Stafford, I think Joe Burrow is going to be throwing the ball a lot, and he's got a lot of great weapons in Cincinnati. So that kind of concludes our draft. I'm curious to see what type of grade we get. I wouldn't be shocked at all for this to be a very low grade because, we just went wide receiver heavy to begin with. And wide receiver, obviously, in terms of the positional hierarchy, isn't as high as running back. And as you can see here, we get a C+, which is actually kind of higher than I expected, but kind of in line with what I would give this team. But I do want to point out this one last time. Tyreek Hill, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, though getting those guys where we did, not too crazy. I think that's very realistic. I wouldn't be taking Julio Jones in the third round if I'd gotten Tyreek and Michael Thomas. I probably would have gone Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And afterwards in the fourth round, if Chris Carson's there, I'm doing that every single day of the week. But I would say you've got about less than a 5% chance come your drafts in September or August that Chris Carson is available at this point in time in the fourth round. So don't go by that. We just got very lucky. In the fifth round, TJ Hawkinson, that's probably, again, the pivotal point where we could have maybe gone running back again, probably should have, but I just locked on to TJ Hawkinson. He's one of my guys. I really believe in him, and I think he's going to have a breakout season, so I went with him. And I was kind of hoping that James Robinson would be available to us in the sixth round, which was the case, so I don't mind that pick. If it wasn't James Robinson, I would have been looking at some wide receivers or, but since we went wide receiver heavy, that really wasn't a case. I think all things considered, James Robinson there was a good value. Then we kind of had to go more running backs afterwards with Chase Edmonds, Ronald Jones in the next couple of rounds just to build that depth. Antonio Brown getting him where we did, I think that's, again, good value. Same with Matthew Stafford, same with Russell Gage and Joe Burrow. So I'd probably give this a grade of a C to C+. Again, we got very lucky. If this was a little bit more realistic, I'd probably say we get a C, maybe even a D+ grade if we don't get Chris Carson. That's how lucky I think we were to grab him. But hey, let me know it in the comment section. Do you agree? Disagree? If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. We're going to be doing another one of these where we pick at the last or towards the end of the first round. So keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.